I was in no way anticipating Ghost of Yotei. Everything we saw from the game looked like more of the same. And I'm someone who did enjoy and plan on the first game when it came out. I just forgot that it existed a week later. But I recently got the Far Cry 3 Platinum, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I said, you know what? I'm really in the mood for some open world, collectathon, Ubisoft type slop right now. This couldn't have come at a better time. And I was enjoying the game up until I wasn't. I was enjoying the customization. I was taking in the scenery, the environments. This game looks great. Everyone who says that this game looks the same as the first is out of their mind. Maybe the character models do, but in terms of the world itself, this game looks like a painting at times. On top of that, the combat is satisfying. I'm having fun doing the cleanup in the open world. And in the first 10 hours, I thought this could actually be a Game of the Year contender, all the way up until it exposed its flaws and overstayed its welcome. First of all, let me address this map controversy and get it out of the way. I tweeted that I don't like the map minigame. I'm calling it a minigame because to call it anything other than that, to call it a puzzle would be disrespectful to puzzles. But I tweeted that it was ass and I didn't like it. And I'm not a cartographer. And people talk to me saying I'm not a cartographer to mean that I'm not a cartographer. How am I supposed to figure this out? What I meant was I'm not a cartographer. I don't want to do this shit. And the tweet went crazy, 2 million views, people calling me everything but a man of the cloth. I was unfamiliar there was even that many ways to be called a retard. And then you had this Zest monster trying to pile on, making TikToks about it, just regurgitating every single comment left. No original thought in that brain. But I shouldn't expect better from a grown-ass man with a beard making TikToks. And then you had Synth Potato, who's a positivity merchant that likes everything and started the game in like 2 years ago. That everyone calls an industry plant and a paid show. I don't even think he's that. I'm not even giving him that credit. I think he just likes the attention that much. But to explain what had happened here, I did a few of these, I lined them up properly, I lined them up correctly, and then there was one I came across I was having some difficulty with. I pressed X and it auto locked into place. And I was like, so I don't have to do this crummy, redundant minigame? And so I just started spamming X in all of them and it would work. It would take maybe like 5-10 seconds. Then I tried the method in this clip here. It did not work. It clearly did not work, right? But I was so used to it working that I wasn't looking. No, I didn't see the square because it worked so fast every other time that the square never appeared. So I didn't know to look for it. And funny enough, I actually never saw the square ever again. It never showed up. I saw them that fast from this point forward. But to be honest, I did end up doing a combination of looking and spamming X. So yeah, it was faster. So yes, I'm not blind. No, I'm not mentally challenged. They're super easy. I just feel like they add nothing of value to the game. And it's one of many instances where I feel like the developer said, well, we don't want people to get bored of just swinging a sword constantly. Let's add something else that's even more boring just to mix it up. And that's how you end up with these campfires, the forge, the cooking minigame, and these paintings of these beautiful environments that end up looking like shit. I see everyone talking about how the DualSense implementation is great and how Sucker Punch is one of the few developers to take advantage of it. But to me, the DualSense here feels forced and gimmicky. I think a great example of DualSense implementation is Sword of the Sea, not whatever this swipe left on the touchpad thing is. And every time I got the opportunity to skip one of these, I absolutely did. The rest of the game lacks an attention to detail, so these minigames don't add to the immersion. They aren't fun, they just feel tacked on. And speaking of tacked on, the climbing here is super clunky for no apparent reason. You would think the game that's meant to rival Assassin's Creed would take this a bit more seriously, but no. The climbing is very on rails, there's nothing freeform about it, and it feels very stiff. The reason it sticks out and feels so out of place is because how smooth and how seamless the combat is. Besides the lack of animations and them getting somewhat repetitive over the course of the game, I don't really have any complaints about the combat. The parry on the spear enemies can be a bit iffy at times, I'm not sure if that was just me. But that aside, the combat feels impactful, satisfying, it flows smoothly. I do like that it's bloody and somewhat gory. And instead of stances, you have multiple weapons, which is a welcome change. And just like the first, you don't need to switch weapons. You can get by just using your favorite. However, if it was a boss fight, I would make that conscious effort to change, and sometimes I'd use different weapons just to mix it up. Everything beside the longsword, because for me it was just way too slow. Now I play the game on lethal, and on lethal the game maybe starts off a bit difficult for the first hour or so, but then you'll get self-revive and a bunch of other upgrades, and the game becomes pretty easy relatively quickly, even on the hardest difficulty. But even on lethal, I never felt the need to constantly be switching back and forth between weapons. I'm not bringing this up as a complaint. If this was something more intimate with fewer enemies, then maybe. But when they're throwing 20 enemies at you, it's like, do you really want to be switching between 5 different weapons for each person? Not really, probably not. I will say the stealth here, I don't particularly love. It's the type of loud, obnoxious stealth where animations are loud, they're not low-key, and it's just doing the most. It's like, this isn't stealth. How did nobody hear this? And on top of all of that, it's very simplistic. It's very straightforward. There's no depth to it. And it's just another instance of something being super surface level with no innovation. Just once more being something you've seen before. And as for the moment-to-moment gameplay, it's the same as the first. Some slight changes, but you still will be following behind foxes, going to shrines, taking out enemy bases, enjoying yourself in a hot spring, which they do show cheeks. And a lot of this you will find organically in the world, whether it's a smoke signal in the distance, a bird, or a random NPC giving you some information. And everything you do is very rewarding, and it keeps you going. New weapon, of course. New armor, of course. So you're constantly incentivized to do these missions. And I will say it flows together really smoothly. So smoothly that I had 3 main missions and 25 hours of playtime, because I was spending so much time just doing everything else. But then it starts to wear thin, and you're like, okay, I've seen enough. It's time to lock in with the story and get it over with. And what you're welcomed with is an extremely short, very basic, predictable, uninteresting story that actually makes no sense, feels extremely forced, and with an ending that leaves no impact at all. I could tell you right now the ending of the game. Right now, everything, every detail. And you wouldn't even get pissed off. I'm not gonna do it. But you'd be like, oh, okay, I guess. There's nothing even to spoil with it. Now, my issues with it aren't the same issues others have with it. The whole woke thing that they replaced the male with a woman makes no sense to me. There's so many female samurai movies that are cult classics. Lady Snowblood, Kill Bill. So outside of all the extra noise of, well, the voice actor is gay and she said this on Twitter, it's like, I don't care. I didn't even play the game in English. And on top of all of that, I do think Atsu is the better character. Now in the end, she kind of falls off. But people love to act like Jin was this deep, layered character who had all this internal struggle of doing what was right and being a samurai, and he was torn between the two, and that sentence sums it up completely. That's as deep as it ever got, really. It was a paper-thin story that had no depth, that wasn't interesting, and outside of that, nobody remembers anything else. As for the story here, the story actually sucks. Like, it's really bad. First impressions are, oh, this is just another samurai revenge story. It's like super tropey, it's done before, and I wish you came with something better. But if this works as the backdrop to the moment-to-moment gameplay, then who really cares? But this isn't even a good revenge story. They try to humanize all the enemies, which feels super forced, it feels super unnatural. There's forgiveness by different characters, not just Atsu, that doesn't make sense. And it's 10 times worse than The Last of Us 2. I actually do like The Last of Us 2 story and think it makes sense. But whereas The Last of Us 2, you can make a case that either party is not necessarily a bad person all the way. Here, the enemies have a calling card of burning everybody alive and terrorizing the land. So the whole revenge is bad thing is irrelevant when you would have to kill these people anyway, regardless of if they killed your family. If you kill these people, you save everybody. You save everyone in this whole city, this whole little something. So this whole revenge is bad story, it makes zero sense given the concept of the game. It's nonsensical, it's unsatisfying, it's boring, it's predictable, it's a mess. The story is pure slop. Then the story is super short, which obviously I'm thankful for because of how it turned out. But a decent chunk of it is filled with these puzzles. And these puzzles are so trash and rudimentary. They're simple, so yeah, you don't have to look them up on YouTube. But they're simple to a point where it's like, why even have them here? They just feel like filler and fluff. And there's so many of them throughout the game. And just like the maps, if it's going to be so simple, why even have it? There's so many examples of why even have it in this game. The dialogue choices are the biggest offense. There is never an interesting, I wonder what she would have said if I chose the other dialogue option. They have no impact on gameplay, no impact on story. It's literally just there, I'm presuming, to keep you engaged. Oh, there's a button I have to press, let me pay attention. On top of that, like I mentioned at the start, this game is very samey as the first. I do think better, but very samey. To a point where it made me feel like, why did this even take so long? It feels like they spent a good portion of that time just playtesting how to hold your hand in every single instance, with the illusion that they aren't. But everything's so scripted, so curated, on rails. Another complaint that I have, there's no transmog system here. Some of these outfits have such better perks than others. Like, they're so much better. Like, why would you use literally anything other than this? And then some look super cool and it's like, the perks are ass. I would never use this. Why can't I mix and match? There's no reason you shouldn't be able to mix and match here. You either have to pick between having cool looking armor sets or actually useful gameplay perks. So you'll often spend your entire playthrough in the same outfit if you're choosing the perks. And speaking of the outfits, this game has really bad clipping. Now, I don't really care about smaller stuff like this typically, but here it's so egregious that it's like they never even tried. And I'm coming from playing Silent Hill F, a game where they very clearly tried. They made sure there was no clipping in that game. So here it just stuck out, and it stuck out to a point where I had to change settings to turn off items showing on your back. So to summarize, the game looks great, it plays great, the maps are clear to navigate, you can easily sort through the menus and see, okay, here's my quest, here's what I have to do. It's very easy to understand, very easy to follow, and exploration comes very organically. It's just everything else isn't very good. The game doesn't do anything new from the game that came before it or the greater industry. If you ask me right now what is new about this game, all that I can say is it's a new protagonist. There's this slide mechanic down hills now, which is decent, but like, there's this mini game which is pretty cool. It's not designed for people who have a dual sense edge. You have to turn off the trigger locks when doing it. And I had fun with it. It was cool. And the change to weapons instead of stances, that's about all that it does now. The story is really bad. The game is way too long considering how few new things it does, so it quickly outstays its welcome. And this game is just decent at best. It's filler, it's something to pad the time, it's something to play, but it's nothing special. The story isn't special, the gameplay isn't special. It's just a decent time that you can have fun with if you're in the mood for this sort of thing. It's in no way a bad game, it's just extremely plain.